The slap echoed through the wedding hall like a gunshot. I stood there, 57 years old, my cheek burning, while 200 guests stared at me in horrified silence. My daughter-in-law Rebecca had just struck me across the face in front of everyone I'd ever known. Her hand was still raised, trembling with rage, her wedding dress shimmering under the chandeliers like she was some kind of avenging angel. "Give me the keys," she hissed. "Now." My son Jake stood beside her, his face pale but saying nothing. Not defending me, not stopping her, just standing there in his tuxedo like a mannequin, while his new wife demanded the keys to my house. The house I'd built with my own hands 40 years ago. The house where I'd raised him after his mother died. The house that held every memory I had left. I touched my cheek. It was hot. The whole room seemed to tilt sideways for a moment, like I was on a ship in rough seas. The chandeliers blurred. The faces of the guests merged into one giant, judging mass. "No," I said quietly. Rebecca's eyes went wide. She hadn't expected that. Nobody had. "Old men are supposed to roll over, aren't they? We're supposed to shuffle off quietly when we're told to. Make it easy for everyone." "What did you say?" Her voice was shrill now, cutting through the shocked silence like a knife. "I said no." I looked at my son, really looked at him, searching for any trace of the boy I'd raised. "Jake, are you going to say something? Anything?" He opened his mouth, closed it, looked at Rebecca, then back at me. His eyes were full of something I couldn't quite read. Guilt, maybe, or fear, or just the cold calculation of a man who'd already made his choice. "Dad, we've talked about this," he said finally. His voice was measured, reasonable, like he was explaining something to a child. "The house is too big for you. You're getting older. We just want to help you transition into something more manageable. It makes sense." Manageable. Like I was a problem to be solved. "I built that house," I said. My voice was steady, but I could feel something cracking inside my chest, something that had been holding me together for a very long time. "Your mother and I, we poured the foundation. We hung every door. We painted every wall. You learned to walk on those floors, Jake. You said your first words in that kitchen." "That was a long time ago," Rebecca said, her tone softening into something worse than anger. Pity. "Things change. You need to accept that." The guests were whispering now. I could hear them, a low buzz of scandal and second-hand embarrassment. Poor old man. So stubborn. Can't face reality. Should just do what they say. I straightened my shoulders, looked Rebecca right in the eye. "You're right," I said. "Things do change." Then I turned and walked out of the wedding hall, leaving them all standing there. I didn't run, didn't hurry, just walked, one foot in front of the other, while my heart hammered in my chest and my cheek throbbed and something cold and hard settled in my stomach like a stone. Behind me, I heard the murmur of voices rising. Someone laughed, nervous and sharp. The band started playing again, trying to smooth over the awkwardness, trying to pretend nothing had happened. I pushed through the double doors into the parking lot. The evening air hit my face, cool and clean. My car was parked at the far end, a 10-year-old sedan that Jake had suggested I replace more than once. "Something safer, Dad, more reliable. Something that won't break down and leave you stranded." I got in, sat there with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the wedding hall through the windshield. Light spilled out of the windows. I could see silhouettes moving inside, dancing, celebrating. My phone buzzed, a text from Jake. "Dad, please come back inside. Let's talk about this like adults." Adults? I almost laughed. I started the car and drove home, my home, for now. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I'd left before dawn to get to the wedding venue 3 hours away, and I'd been gone all day. The porch light was out. I'd been meaning to fix it for weeks, but hadn't gotten around to it. There was always something else that needed doing, always some small repair or maintenance task that I kept putting off. I sat in the car for a moment, looking at the place. 2 stories, blue siding that needed repainting, a front yard I mowed every Saturday morning without fail. The maple tree I'd planted when Jake was born was massive now, its branches stretching over the roof like protective arms. 40 years ago, this had been nothing but a dirt lot. Sarah and I had saved for 5 years to buy it. We'd done most of the work ourselves, learning as we went. I remembered her standing in the empty living room, 7 months pregnant with Jake, planning where the furniture would go. She'd had paint in her hair and sawdust on her jeans, and I'd never seen her happier. "This is going to be perfect," she'd said, spinning around with her arms out. "Can't you just see it? The couch here, the TV there, Jake's toys all over the floor." "It's going to be chaos," I'd said, laughing. "The best kind of chaos." Now Jake wanted to take it, renovate it, turn it into something profitable, strip out everything we'd built and replace it with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances and whatever else would maximize the resale value. I got out of the car and went inside. The house smelled like old coffee and the lasagna I'd made 3 days ago. I flipped on the lights and stood in the entryway, looking around like I was seeing it for the first time. The hardwood floors were scuffed and worn. The walls needed paint. The furniture was old but comfortable, each piece chosen carefully over the years. This wasn't a showplace. This wasn't something out of a magazine. It was a home, a real home, lived in and loved. My phone rang. Jake. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again a minute later. I turned it off. I went to the kitchen and poured myself a whiskey. Neat, the way Sarah used to make it for me on Friday nights after a long week. Then I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where Jake had done his homework, where Sarah had paid the bills, where we'd hosted Sunday dinners and birthday parties and regular Tuesday nights. They wanted me gone, out of the way, convenient. I took a sip of whiskey. It burned going down, settling warm in my chest. They thought I was weak, thought I'd just hand it over, thought I was too old, too tired, too broken to fight back. I looked at my reflection in the kitchen window. Grey hair, lines around my eyes and mouth, sagging skin under my jaw, liver spots on my hands. But my eyes were sharp, clear, angry. I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. The next morning, I called Charlotte. Charlotte Reeves had been Sarah's best friend in high school. They'd been inseparable back then, 2 girls against the world. She'd been a bridesmaid at our wedding. She'd held Jake when he was hours old. And when Sarah died, Charlotte had been there, helping me figure out how to keep going. She'd become a real estate agent 15 years ago and had sold dozens of houses in the neighborhood. She knew everyone, knew every property value down to the dollar, knew how to get things done quickly and quietly. "William," she said when she answered. Her voice was warm, familiar, like coming home. "How are you? I heard about the wedding. Are you okay?" News traveled fast in a small town. Someone had probably posted about it on social media before I'd even made it to the parking lot. "I'm fine," I said. "I need your help." "Of course. Anything." "I want to sell the house." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear her breathing, hear the sound of traffic in the background. She was probably in her car, driving between showings. "Your house," she said finally. "The house on Maple Street?" "Yes." "William, are you sure? I mean, that's a big decision. Have you talked to Jake about this?" "I don't need to talk to Jake. It's my house, my name on the deed, my decision." Another pause. Longer this time. "Okay," she said slowly. "When were you thinking?" "As soon as possible." "How soon is that?" "This week." She laughed, then stopped when she realized I wasn't joking. "William, selling a house takes time. Inspections, appraisals, showings, negotiations. Even in a hot market, you're looking at weeks, minimum, maybe months. I'll take the first reasonable offer, I said. No haggling, no contingencies. Cash only if possible. I want this done fast. You're serious? Completely. She was quiet for a moment. I could hear her thinking, processing what I was telling her. All right, she said finally. I'll draw up the paperwork. Can I come by tomorrow to take photos and do a walkthrough? Come today, I said. This afternoon. William, please, Charlotte. She heard something in my voice. Something hard and final and desperate. Okay, she said softly. I'll be there at 2. I hung up and looked around the kitchen. The morning light was streaming through the windows, making everything look warm and golden and safe. Deceiving, really. Nothing was safe. Nothing was permanent. My phone buzzed. Jake again. Dad, we need to talk. Rebecca is upset. She didn't mean to slap you. She was stressed about the wedding, about everything. Please call me back. I deleted the message without finishing it. At 2 o'clock sharp, Charlotte knocked on the door. She was in her 50s, well-dressed in a navy blazer and crisp white shirt, with short grey hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She gave me a hug when I let her in, holding on a little longer than necessary. You look terrible, she said when she pulled back. Thanks. I'm serious, William. What's going on? What happened at that wedding? I told her. Not everything, but enough. The way Jake had been pressuring me for months to move out. Rebecca's coldness, her barely concealed contempt for me and everything I represented. The slap at the wedding, delivered in front of everyone we knew. The text messages afterward, alternating between hollow apologies and thinly veiled demands. Charlotte listened, her face growing harder with each sentence. By the time I finished, her jaw was clenched tight. That little shit, she said. I changed his diapers. I taught him to ride a bike. I was there when he graduated high school. And this is how he treats you. He thinks he's helping, I said. He thinks I'm too old to take care of myself, that I need someone to make decisions for me. Are you? No. She studied me for a moment, her eyes searching my face. Then she nodded, satisfied. All right. Let's sell this house. She spent the next hour walking through every room, taking photos with her phone, making notes on a tablet. She measured walls, checked the furnace, inspected the water heater, looked at the roof from the attic window. She opened every closet, every cabinet, every drawer. The house is in good shape, she said when she was done. A little dated, sure. The kitchen could use updating. The bathrooms are original, but the bones are solid. The structure is sound. Someone did quality work here. Sarah and I did most of it ourselves. It shows, in a good way. She paused, looking around the living room. In this market, I can probably get you 400,000. Maybe more if we get multiple offers. I whistled low. That much? Location, William. This neighborhood has gotten expensive. Young families want to move here. The schools are good. The commute to the city is reasonable. Houses like this don't stay on the market long. She paused. You could live very comfortably somewhere smaller with that kind of money. I know. Where are you going to go? I'll figure it out. She looked at me for a long moment, then squeezed my arm. I'll have the listing up by tomorrow, she said. And William? For what it's worth, I think Sarah would be proud of you. After she left, I stood in the empty living room and tried to imagine what Sarah would actually think. Would she be proud? Or would she tell me I was being stubborn and petty and childish? But Sarah was gone, had been gone for 12 years. Cancer, quick and cruel. She'd been 53 years old, and Jake had forgotten her. Forgotten everything she'd taught him about family, about loyalty, about treating people with respect and dignity. So maybe it didn't matter what Sarah would think. This was about what I needed to do, what I had to do, for myself. The listing went live on Wednesday morning at 9 o'clock. By Wednesday afternoon at 3, Charlotte had scheduled 5 showings. "I told you," she said on the phone, sounding pleased. "Hot market. People are hungry for houses like yours." Jake called me 6 times that day. I didn't answer any of them. Each call went to voicemail, and each voicemail was progressively more desperate. "Dad, please pick up. We need to talk. Dad, I'm sorry about what happened. Rebecca feels terrible. Dad, you're being unreasonable. Just call me back." I deleted each one without listening to the whole thing. On Thursday morning, he showed up at the house. I was in the garage, sorting through boxes of old tools, deciding what to keep and what to get rid of. 40 years of accumulated stuff. Screwdrivers and hammers and saws and drills. Some of it I'd used regularly. Some of it I'd bought for specific projects and never touched again. I heard his car pull into the driveway. I recognized the sound of the engine, that expensive purr that came from the BMW I'd helped him buy 3 years ago. He'd needed a car for work, something professional, and I'd co-signed the loan because his credit wasn't quite good enough on its own. I stayed in the garage, kept sorting. "Dad?" His voice echoed from the driveway. "Dad, I know you're here. Your car's in the garage." I didn't answer, just kept moving boxes, making piles, keep, donate, throw away. "Dad, please, we need to talk." I heard his footsteps on the concrete. Then he appeared in the doorway of the garage, silhouetted against the bright morning sun. He was in a suit, probably came straight from work. His tie was loose. He looked tired. Good. "What do you want, Jake?" "I want to talk, about the wedding, about everything." "Nothing to talk about." "Dad." "Your wife slapped me in front of 200 people, I said, not looking at him. I picked up a rusty handsaw, examined it, tossed it in the throwaway pile. And you stood there. Didn't say a word. Didn't defend me. Didn't tell her to stop. Just stood there like a coward. His face flushed red. She was stressed. It was a mistake. She's apologized a dozen times. Has she? Yes. She feels terrible about it. Does she? I turned to face him now, meeting his eyes. Or does she just feel bad that I didn't cave, that I didn't hand over the keys like a good little old man and shuffle off to some retirement home somewhere? That's not fair. Fair? I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. You want to talk about fair? I raised you by myself after your mother died. I worked 2 jobs to keep this house and pay for your college. I gave you everything I had, everything I could scrape together. And now you want to push me out of my own house so you can flip it for profit. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about, Jake? Explain it to me. He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. He'd always done that when he was cornered, even as a kid. It was his tell. You're getting older, Dad. This house is too much for you. The maintenance, the yard work, the stairs. What happens when you fall and break a hip? What happens when you can't take care of yourself anymore? Who's going to help you? I'll deal with it when it happens. That's not a plan. It's my plan, my life, my choice. We stared at each other across the cluttered garage. For a moment, just a flash, I saw the little boy he used to be, the one who'd followed me around the hardware store on Saturday mornings, asking questions about every tool, every piece of wood, every nail and screw. The one who'd helped me build a treehouse in the backyard, even though he'd been more hindrance than help, handing me the wrong tools and dropping nails in the grass. The one who'd cried at Sarah's funeral and told me through his tears that he'd take care of me, that he'd never leave me alone. But that boy was gone. The man standing in front of me was a stranger wearing my son's face. I'm selling the house, I said quietly. Jake blinked. What? I'm selling it. It's already listed. I've had 5 showings scheduled. His face went white. You can't do that. I can. It's my house. But where will you go? That's not your concern. Dad, please, don't do this. Let's sit down and talk about this rationally. We can figure something out that works for everyone. I'm done talking, I said. Get out. Dad, get out. He opened his mouth to say something else, then closed it. His jaw worked. His hands clenched into fists at his sides, then slowly relaxed. I watched him struggle with it, watched him try to find the right words. But there were no right words. Not anymore. Fine, he said finally. His voice was cold now, distant. But you're making a mistake, a huge mistake. And when you're alone in some tiny apartment with no one to help you, don't come crying to me. He turned and walked back to his car. I watched him go, watched him slam the car door harder than necessary, watched him peel out of the driveway with his tires squealing on the pavement. My hands were shaking. I sat down on an overturned bucket and took a deep breath, then another. I'd burned the bridge. There was no going back now, no pretending this hadn't happened, no smoothing it over with apologies and explanations. Good. That's what I wanted. That's what needed to happen. I sat there for a long time, surrounded by the tools I'd collected over a lifetime, and felt nothing at all. On Friday morning, Charlotte called before I'd even finished my coffee. "We have an offer," she said. Her voice was excited, breathless. "Full asking price. Cash. They want to close in 2 weeks." My heart pounded. "Who are they?" "Retired couple, Gary and Linda Morrison. They've been looking for a place in this neighborhood for months. They love the house." Linda actually cried during the showing. She said it reminds her of the home she grew up in. 2 weeks? Is that too fast? I can negotiate for more time if you need it. "No," I said. "It's perfect." "William, are you sure about this? Once you sign the papers, there's no going back. This is it." "I'm sure." She sighed. "All right, I'll draw up the paperwork. Can you come to my office this afternoon to go over everything?" "I'll be there." I hung up and looked around the house. 2 weeks. I had 2 weeks to pack up 40 years of my life, to sort through every memory, every belonging, every piece of the past. I started in the attic. That's where the oldest things were, the things we'd stored away and forgotten about. I climbed the narrow stairs, pushed open the door, and sneezed immediately. Dust everywhere, thick and heavy. I pulled down boxes, Christmas decorations we hadn't used in years, old photo albums with pictures of people I barely remembered, Jake's baby clothes that Sarah had saved, wrapped carefully in tissue paper, his first shoes, his first Halloween costume, a tiny pumpkin outfit that he'd screamed in for hours. I pulled everything down, carried it to the living room, sorted through it methodically. Keep, donate, throw away. Most of it went into the throwaway pile. What was I going to do with baby clothes? With broken Christmas ornaments? I found Sarah's wedding dress in a box in the corner. It was yellowed with age, the lace brittle and fragile. I lifted it out carefully, held it up to the light streaming through the attic window. She'd been so beautiful that day. 23 years old, her dark hair pinned up with flowers, her eyes shining with happiness and hope. We'd gotten married in a small church with 50 guests. Nothing fancy, nothing expensive, just us and the people we loved. I remembered dancing with her at the reception, both of us laughing because neither of us knew how to dance. I remembered driving away in my beat-up truck with tin cans tied to the bumper, heading to a cheap motel for our wedding night because we couldn't afford anything else. I remembered being happy, really, truly happy. I folded the dress carefully and put it in the keep pile. Jake could have it, or not. I didn't really care anymore. By Sunday, I'd packed most of the house. I'd found a storage unit on the edge of town, one of those big climate-controlled ones, for the things I wanted to keep but didn't have room for. The furniture, most of it, would stay with the house. The Morrisons wanted it, said it had character, that it fit the house perfectly. Jake called me 12 times over the weekend. I didn't answer any of them. He texted too, long messages that I deleted without reading. On Monday morning, he showed up again. This time, he had Rebecca with him. I was loading boxes into my car, making another trip to the storage unit, when they pulled up. Rebecca got out first, her face pinched and angry. She was wearing expensive sunglasses and designer jeans and a silk blouse that probably cost more than I spent on groceries in a month. Jake followed, looking nervous and uncomfortable. "We need to talk," Rebecca said. "No hello, no greeting, just straight to business." "No, we don't. You can't sell this house." "I can. I did." Her mouth dropped open. "What?" "I accepted an offer. We close in 2 weeks." "You what?" Jake's voice was strangled, desperate. "Dad, you can't just—" "I can. I did. It's done." Rebecca stepped forward, her face turning red. "This is insane. You're being selfish and spiteful. This isn't just about you. This house is part of Jake's inheritance, part of our future. You have no right to sell it without consulting us." I laughed. I couldn't help it. The absurdity of it all just hit me, and I laughed until my sides hurt. "My inheritance," I said when I could breathe again. "That's what you care about. Not me, not my well-being, not whether I'm happy or comfortable or safe. Just the money. Just what you think you're owed." "That's not true," Jake said, but his voice was weak, uncertain. "Isn't it?" I looked at him, really looked at him. "When's the last time you visited me? Really visited, not just stopped by to lecture me about moving out or to tell me what I should do with my life?" He didn't answer. "When's the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Not to ask for something, not to tell me about your problems, but just to talk, just to check in?" Still nothing. That's what I thought. Rebecca stepped forward again, her hands clenched into fists. For a moment, I thought she might slap me again. I almost wanted her to. At least, it would be honest. "You're going to regret this," she said, her voice tight and controlled. "You're going to end up alone in some terrible apartment with no one to help you. And when you do, don't come crawling back to us." "I won't," I said. "I promise you that." They stood there for a moment, not knowing what to say, not knowing what to do. Then Rebecca grabbed Jake's arm and pulled him toward the car. "Come on," she said. "He's not worth it. He's a bitter old man who can't accept that the world has moved on without him." They drove away. I watched them go, feeling nothing but a strange sense of relief. They were gone. Finally gone, and I could breathe again. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of packing and planning and paperwork. I found an apartment across town. 1 bedroom, small kitchen, decent rent. The landlord was a woman in her 40s who seemed pleased to have a quiet, older tenant. She showed me around, pointing out the amenities: laundry in the basement, parking in the back, a small patio where I could sit and have my morning coffee. It was anonymous and impersonal and perfect. No memories, no ghosts, just a blank slate. I hired movers for the few pieces of furniture I wanted to keep. My bed, the kitchen table and 2 chairs, the couch where I'd watched 1,000 football games and fallen asleep during 1,000 movies. Everything else stayed with the house. Charlotte handled all the paperwork. I signed where she told me to sign, initialed where she told me to initial. It all felt surreal, like I was watching someone else's life from a distance. Jake sent me emails, long, rambling things about family and legacy and responsibility. I didn't read them, just deleted them as they came in. Rebecca sent me a letter, handwritten on expensive stationery, explaining how hurt they were, how betrayed, how I was destroying the family and ruining Jake's life. I threw it away without finishing it. On the day of the closing, I woke up early, made coffee, sat at the kitchen table for the last time and looked around. 40 years. 40 years of my life in this house. I'd been a young man when Sarah and I moved in. Now I was old, grey, worn down by time and life and disappointment. But I was still here, still standing, still fighting. I finished my coffee, rinsed the cup, left it in the sink. Then I grabbed my keys and drove to the lawyer's office. The Morrisons were already there when I arrived. They were in their 70s, both of them, with kind faces and warm smiles. Gary had white hair and a firm handshake. Linda had laugh lines around her eyes and a gentle voice. "We love the house," Linda said, squeezing my hand. "We're going to take such good care of it." "I know you will," I said, and I meant it. These people would appreciate what Sarah and I had built. They'd live in it, make memories in it, love it the way it deserved to be loved. Not like Jake, not like Rebecca. We sat down at a long conference table. The lawyer, a young man in an expensive suit, explained the documents, pointed to lines where I needed to sign. I signed them all without hesitation. When it was done, Charlotte handed me an envelope. Inside was a check. $400,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. "Congratulations," Gary said, shaking my hand again. "And thank you for trusting us with your home." "Take care of her," I said. My voice was rough, thick with emotion I hadn't expected to feel. "We will. We promise." I walked out of the lawyer's office and stood on the sidewalk. The sun was shining. Birds were singing in the trees that lined the street. The world kept turning, indifferent to the monumental thing that had just happened. I got in my car and drove to my new apartment. It took 20 minutes through traffic. I parked in the lot behind the building, grabbed my keys, and went inside. The apartment was small, quiet. The furniture I'd kept looked out of place, too big for the cramped space. The walls were white and bare. The carpet was industrial, beige, impersonal, but it was mine. All mine. I sat down on the couch and looked around. This was my life now. This small apartment, this blank slate, this fresh start. No Jake, no Rebecca, no demands or expectations or judgments. Just me. I felt something loosen in my chest, something that had been tight for months, maybe years, maybe since Sarah died. Relief, pure, simple relief. I was free. I didn't hear from Jake for 3 weeks after the closing. I settled into my new place during that time, learned the neighborhood, found a coffee shop I liked on the corner, a little place with good coffee and better pastries, found a grocery store within walking distance, a library, a park where people walk their dogs in the evening. I made the apartment feel like mine, put up some pictures, bought new curtains, set up my tools in a corner of the living room, even though I didn't have anywhere to use them. I put Sarah's photo on the mantel above the electric fireplace, the one from our honeymoon, both of us tan and young and grinning at the camera like we'd won the lottery. I talked to her sometimes, late at night, when I couldn't sleep. "I hope I did the right thing," I said to her picture. "I think I did, but I don't know anymore." She didn't answer, she never did, but I could imagine what she'd say. She'd tell me I was being stubborn, that I should call Jake, that family was more important than pride. But maybe she'd also understand. Maybe she'd see that I'd had no choice, that Jake and Rebecca had pushed me into a corner and I'd done the only thing I could do. I wanted to believe that. I needed to believe it. Then, on a Tuesday afternoon in late summer, my doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. I didn't know anyone in the building yet. I looked through the peephole and saw Jake standing there. He looked terrible, thinner than he'd been at the wedding. His face was gaunt, his eyes hollow. He was wearing jeans and a faded t-shirt, not the expensive suits he usually favoured. I hesitated. Part of me wanted to just not answer, to pretend I wasn't home, to avoid the whole confrontation. But I opened the door. "Hi, Dad," he said quietly. "Jake." "Can I come in?" I hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked into the apartment slowly, looking around, taking in the small space, the second-hand furniture, the bare walls. His eyes lingered on Sarah's photo on the mantel. "So, this is where you're living now," he said. "Yes." "It's nice. It's fine." He stood there awkwardly, hands in his pockets, not quite meeting my eyes. "I'm sorry," he said finally, "for everything, for Rebecca, for the wedding, for not standing up for you, for trying to push you out of your own house. I'm sorry." I didn't say anything, just waited. "I know I've said it before," he continued, his voice thick, "but I need you to really hear me. I was wrong. About the house. About treating you like you were a burden. About choosing Rebecca over you. I got caught up in everything. The wedding planning, the renovations we wanted to do, the money. I lost sight of what was important. Which is you, family, the things Mum taught me." I felt something twist in my chest at the mention of Sarah. "Your mother would be ashamed of you," I said quietly. He flinched like I'd hit him, his eyes filled with tears. "I know," he said, his voice breaking. "I know, and I hate myself for it. I hate that I let you down, that I let her down, that I became the kind of person who would treat his own father like garbage. Why are you here, Jake? Because you're my father, because I love you, because I want to make this right. You can't. Why not? Because it's too late. You showed me who you really are. You and Rebecca both. You showed me that I don't matter to you, that I'm just an obstacle, an inconvenience, something to be managed and moved aside when it's convenient. That's not true, isn't it? You stood there and watched her slap me. You didn't defend me. You didn't stop her. You just stood there. I know, I'm sorry. I was in shock. I didn't know what to do. You should have done something, anything, but you chose her over me." The words hung in the air between us, heavy and final. He wiped his eyes with the back of his hand. "Rebecca and I are getting divorced." I wasn't surprised. I'd seen it coming. But I still felt a small jolt of something. Satisfaction, maybe, or vindication. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, not entirely meaning it. "I'm not. She was never right for me. Mum would have told me that if she'd been alive. But I didn't listen to anyone. I just did what I wanted." "What happened?" "She wanted me to sue you, to contest the sale of the house. Said we had grounds because of implied inheritance or some legal nonsense her lawyer came up with. I refused. We fought about it for weeks. And then I realized I didn't love her. Maybe I never did. I just loved the idea of her, the idea of being successful and married and having this perfect life." He sat down on my couch without being invited, put his head in his hands. "When I refused to sue you, she left, packed her stuff and moved in with her parents, filed for divorce a week later. And you know what? I felt relieved, like I could finally breathe again." I stood there, not sure what to say. Part of me wanted to comfort him. He was still my son, after all. But another part of me, the part that was still angry, wanted to let him suffer. "What can I do?" he asked, looking up at me. His eyes were red and pleading. "To fix this? What do you want from me?" "Nothing," I said. "I don't want anything from you." "Dad, please, you should go." "No, not until we work this out. There's nothing to work out. I sold the house. I moved on. You should too." "I can't just move on. You're my father. You're the only family I have left." "Then you should have thought about that before you let your wife humiliate me in front of everyone we know." He stood up, his face flushing with emotion. "I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. But I'm trying to make it right. What else do you want me to say?" "I don't want you to say anything," I said, my voice rising to match his. "I want you to go back in time and be the son I raised, the one who respected me, the one who cared about something other than money and appearances. But you can't do that, can you?" "No, but I can try to be better. I can try to be the person Mum would have wanted me to be. Can you? Yes, if you'll give me a chance. I looked at him, saw the desperation in his eyes, the regret, the hope. He looked like a little boy again, the one who'd scraped his knee and come running to me for comfort. But he wasn't a little boy anymore. He was a man who'd made choices. Bad choices. I need time, I said finally. I need space to figure out who I am now, who I want to be, and I can't do that with you hovering over me, trying to fix everything. How much time? I don't know, weeks, months, however long it takes. He nodded slowly, wiped his eyes again. Okay, he said, I'll give you space. But I'm not giving up on us, Dad. I'm not giving up on you. He turned and walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. I love you, he said without turning around. Then he left. I stood there for a long time after he was gone, staring at the closed door, feeling something I couldn't quite name. A month passed. Then 2. Jake sent me a card for my birthday in September. It was simple, just a store-bought card with a landscape on the front. Inside, he'd written, Thinking of you. Love, Jake. No excuses, no long explanations, just that. I put it on the mantel next to Sarah's photo. I built a life in my new apartment, a small life, quiet, but mine. I read books I'd been meaning to read for years, all the classics Sarah had loved, Steinbeck and Hemingway and Faulkner. I watched old movies on the Classic Film Channel, went for long walks in the park near my building, watching the seasons change. I made a friend, Arthur, a widower who lived 2 floors up. We met in the laundry room one afternoon, both of us folding clothes and complaining about the machines eating quarters. You play chess? He asked. I used to. Thursday nights in my apartment, 6 o'clock, bring beer. That's how it started. Thursday nights became a ritual. We'd play chess and drink beer and complain about the weather and world politics and the price of everything these days. He'd lost his wife 5 years ago. Understood what it was like to be alone. You seem lighter, he said one evening, studying the board between us. Than what? Than when you first moved in. You were carrying something heavy back then. Whatever it was, you seemed to have put it down. I moved my knight, considering his words. Maybe I have. Good, he said, capturing my bishop. Life's too short to carry other people's weight. Checkmate, by the way. In October, my granddaughter Ellie called me. She was Jake's daughter from his first marriage, the one person in the family who'd never stopped calling me, never stopped caring. Grandpa, she said, her voice bright and young and full of life. I miss you. I miss you too, sweetheart. Can I come visit? Dad says I have to ask you first, that you need your space. But I really want to see you. My throat tightened. Of course you can. Any time you want. She came the next weekend. She was 12 now, all long limbs and braces and endless questions about everything. She'd grown since I'd last seen her, looked more like Sarah every day. We went to the movies, got ice cream, walked around downtown looking in shop windows. Just being together, no agenda, no pressure. Dad feels bad, she said as we sat on a bench eating our cones. Chocolate for her, vanilla for me. About what happened with you and Rebecca. I know. Are you ever going to forgive him? I thought about it, really thought about it. Maybe, I said. Someday. But not yet. Not yet. She nodded, licking chocolate ice cream off her fingers. That's fair. He was pretty mean to you. Rebecca was worse, but he should have stood up for you. He was scared, I said, surprised to find myself defending him. People do stupid things when they're scared. Are you scared? Of what? Being alone. I thought about my small apartment, my quiet life, my Thursday night chess games with Arthur, my morning walks in the park. No, I said. Not anymore. She smiled at me. Sarah's smile, It still hurt to see it, but in a good way, like pressing on a bruise that's almost healed. After I took her home that evening, I drove back to my apartment and sat in the parking lot for a while, thinking. I'd been angry for so long, angry at Jake, at Rebecca, at the unfairness of it all. The anger had fueled me, kept me going through the sale and the move and the lonely nights, when I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But I was tired of being angry. It was exhausting. It was eating me alive. Maybe it was time to let it go. Not to forget. Not to pretend it hadn't happened. But to stop letting it control me. In November, I drove past the old house. I didn't plan to. I was just in the neighborhood, running errands at the hardware store I'd always gone to, and my car seemed to take me there on its own. Muscle memory, maybe, or curiosity. I parked across the street and looked at it. The Morrisons had repainted the siding. It was still blue, but a brighter, fresher shade. They'd fixed the porch light that I'd been meaning to fix for months. Planted new flowers in the front yard, mums in deep reds and oranges for fall. The maple tree still stretched over the roof, its branches mostly bare now for winter, a few stubborn leaves clinging on. It looked good, loved, cared for. As I watched, Linda came out the front door with a watering can. She was wearing a cardigan and jeans, her white hair pulled back in a ponytail. She saw me sitting there and waved. I waved back. She set down the watering can and walked across the street. "William," she said, smiling warmly, "what a nice surprise. Would you like to come in? I just made coffee and pumpkin bread." "No, thank you. I was just passing by. Wanted to see how the old place was doing." "The house is wonderful," she said, her eyes shining. "We've been so happy here. Gary's already started planning a vegetable garden for spring, and we've had our grandchildren visit twice. They love the backyard, especially that big maple tree. I planted that tree when my son was born," I said. 40 years ago. It's beautiful. We'll take good care of it." She paused, studying my face. "You built something special here, William. You should be very proud." I looked at the house again, at the windows where Sarah and I used to stand in the evening, watching Jake play in the yard. At the door, I'd carried her through on our wedding night, both of us laughing and dizzy with happiness. At the roof, I'd repaired a dozen times over the years, always patching, always fixing, always maintaining. "I am," I said, and I meant it. "I really am." Linda patted my arm gently. "You're welcome to visit any time. Seriously, we'd love to have you." "Thank you." She went back inside. I sat there a few minutes longer, watching smoke curl from the chimney, seeing lights turn on inside as evening approached. A family was in there now, living, making memories, loving the house the way it deserved. Then I drove away, and I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel angry or bitter or cheated. I just felt at peace. Christmas came with snow and cold and memories. Ellie invited me to spend the holiday with her mother's family. I accepted gratefully, not wanting to be alone. We ate too much ham and mashed potatoes, played board games that went on forever, watched old Christmas movies and drank hot chocolate with too many marshmallows. It was nice, easy, comfortable. Ellie gave me a gift she'd made herself, a photo album she'd put together. Pictures of me and Sarah, me and Jake when he was little, all three of us together at birthdays and Christmases past. "So you don't forget," she said, "that there were good times too." I held the album in my hands, feeling the weight of it, the weight of all those memories. "Thank you, sweetheart," I said, my voice rough. "This means everything." On Christmas night, my phone rang. Jake. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Maybe it was the holiday. Maybe it was looking at all those old photos. Maybe I was just tired of fighting. "Hi, Dad," he said. His voice was tentative, careful. "Jake. Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." There was a pause. I could hear voices in the background, music, laughter. I just wanted to call, he said, to tell you that I'm thinking about you, that I hope you're doing well, that I hope you had a good day. I did. I spent it with Ellie and her mum's family. Good. That's good. I'm glad you weren't alone. Another pause, longer this time. Dad, I know you said you needed time, and I've tried to give that to you, but I want you to know that I'm here. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready, I'm not going anywhere. I closed my eyes, thought about the last few months, the freedom I'd found, the peace, the quiet life I'd built, but also the emptiness, the holidays without family, the accomplishments with no one to share them with, the nights when I woke up alone in the dark and wondered if I'd cut off my nose to spite my face. I'm not ready to forgive you yet, I said slowly, but I'm working on it. I could hear the relief in his voice, the emotion. That's all I can ask. That's more than I deserve. Jake? Yeah? You hurt me. Really hurt me. And it's going to take time for that to heal. Maybe a long time. I know. I understand. But I want you to know that I love you, even when I'm angry at you, even when I'm disappointed. You're still my son. That doesn't change. His voice was thick when he answered. I love you too, Dad. I love you so much. We talked for a few more minutes. Nothing important. Just small talk about the weather and his job and Ellie's school. But it felt like something had shifted, like a door that had been locked tight had opened, just a crack. When we hung up, I sat there in the quiet apartment and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. Real, genuine hope that maybe, just maybe, we could find our way back to each other. January brought snow and new beginnings and unexpected changes. I started volunteering at the community centre near my apartment. They needed someone to teach basic woodworking to teenagers who were interested in learning trades. It felt good to use my hands again, to pass on what I knew to kids who actually wanted to learn. One of them reminded me of Jake at that age. Same curiosity, same clumsy enthusiasm, same way of asking a million questions. His name was Tommy, and he soaked up everything I taught him like a sponge. My dad doesn't know how to do any of this stuff, he said one afternoon, watching me demonstrate how to use a lathe. He works in an office, wears a suit every day. That's okay, I said. Not everyone does. But you do. You know everything. I laughed. I know a few things, but I'm still learning. You never stop learning. That's what makes life interesting. Arthur and I started a chess club at the centre. Just a few old guys at first, meeting on Tuesday nights. But it grew. Soon we had a dozen regulars, playing and talking and laughing at each other's mistakes. We drank bad coffee from the community centre's ancient pot and argued about politics and sports and everything else. You look happy, Arthur said one night, after checkmating me in 15 moves. I am, I said. And I meant it. In February, on a cold Thursday afternoon, Jake called again. Dad, I have a favour to ask. What is it? Rebecca and I are officially divorced now. Papers signed, everything finalised. And I'm moving into a new place. It's small, needs a lot of work. I was wondering if you might help me fix it up. If you have time, if you want to. I hesitated. This felt like a test. A bridge being rebuilt, one careful plank at a time. What kind of work? Everything. Painting, flooring, maybe some electrical. The place is a disaster. I'm completely in over my head. When? This weekend? Saturday morning? I looked around my apartment. At the life I'd built here. Small, quiet, safe, predictable. And I thought about Jake, alone in an empty apartment trying to start over. Just like I had. Trying to build something new from the ashes of something that had burned down. I'll be there, I said. Really? Really? Send me the address. There was a long pause. I could hear him breathing on the other end of the line. Thank you, Dad. Thank you so much. That Saturday, I showed up at Jake's new place at 8 in the morning with my toolbox and a thermos of coffee. It was a disaster. Worse than I'd expected. Peeling wallpaper hung in strips from the walls. The carpet was stained and torn. The kitchen cabinets were falling off their hinges. Outlets sparked when you plugged things in. The bathroom looked like it hadn't been updated since the 70s, but it had good bones, solid construction, high ceilings, big windows that let in good light. It could be something. Jake and I worked side by side, stripping wallpaper, patching holes in the drywall, replacing broken fixtures. We didn't talk much at first, just worked. But it felt right, like we were building something together. Not a house, something else. Something harder to define, but more important. At lunch, we sat on the floor eating sandwiches I'd brought. Turkey and Swiss, Jake's favourite since he was a kid. "Thanks for coming," he said through a mouthful of sandwich. "You're welcome. I mean it. I know things have been difficult between us. I know I messed up badly. But having you here, working on this together, it means everything to me." I looked at him, really looked at him. He'd lost weight, had new lines around his eyes and mouth, but he looked more like himself than he had in years, more like the son I remembered. "We're not fixed," I said carefully. "This doesn't make everything okay. You understand that, right?" "I know. But it's a start." He smiled. A real smile, not the fake one he'd worn at the wedding. "Yeah, it's a start." We finished our sandwiches and went back to work. By the end of the day, we'd made real progress. The wallpaper was gone. The walls were patched and primed. The dangerous outlets were replaced. "Same time next weekend?" Jake asked as I was packing up my tools. "Sure," I said. "We'll tackle the flooring." Over the next few weeks, I came back every Saturday to help him. We painted walls in warm, neutral colours, refinished the hardwood floors that had been hiding under that awful carpet, hung new light fixtures, installed new kitchen cabinets that Jake had found on sale. Slowly, the apartment transformed. And slowly, so did our relationship. We talked while we worked, about Sarah, about all the mistakes we'd both made, about regrets and hopes and the future. We didn't always agree. Sometimes we argued about the best way to do something, about politics, about life. But we listened to each other. Really listened. One evening in March, as we were cleaning up after installing the new cabinets, Jake put down his screwdriver and looked at me. "I'm sorry," he said. Not for the first time, but somehow it felt different this time. More real. "For everything. I know I've said it before, and I'll probably say it again, but I need you to really hear me. I was wrong. About the house. About treating you like you were a burden instead of my father. About choosing Rebecca and her demands over you. I was so focused on what I thought my life should look like, on having this perfect marriage and this perfect house and this perfect future, that I forgot about the people who actually mattered." I set down the rag I'd been using to wipe sawdust from the new counters. "I know," I said. "Do you forgive me?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. Looked back over the last few months at how far we'd both come. "I'm getting there," I said honestly. "It takes time to rebuild trust. You can't just say sorry and have everything go back to the way it was. But I think we're moving in the right direction. I think we're going to be okay." He nodded, his eyes shining with unshed tears. "That's enough. That's more than enough." We finished cleaning up in companionable silence. When I left that night, driving back to my apartment through the dark streets, I felt lighter than I had in months, maybe years. Spring came slowly, then all at once, the way it always does. The snow melted, trees budded, the world turned green and alive again. I planted flowers in the small patio garden outside my apartment, petunias, Sarah's favourites, watched them grow and bloom and fill the space with colour. Ellie asked if she could spend spring break with me. I said yes without hesitation. We spent the week exploring the city, visiting museums we'd never been to, going to the park to feed the ducks, eating too much ice cream. She helped me with the flowers, her hands in the dirt, her face smudged with soil. "These are Mum's favourites," she said, pointing to the petunias. "Grandma Sarah loved them too, right?" "She did," I said, my throat tight. She planted them every year in the old house, used to say they were cheerful, that they made her happy just looking at them. "Do you miss it? The house?" "Sometimes," I said honestly, "but I like where I am now. I like my life. Because you chose it." "Smart kid. Too smart sometimes." "Yeah," I said, "because I chose it. Because it's mine. And that matters." On her last night with me, we made dinner together. Spaghetti and meatballs, Sarah's recipe that I'd made 1,000 times. We ate at my small kitchen table, talking about school and her friends and her plans for the summer. "Dad talks about you all the time," she said, twirling pasta on her fork. "Does he?" "Yeah. He says you taught him everything he knows about being strong, about standing up for yourself, about not letting people push you around, even when they think they're helping." I smiled, surprised. "I'm not sure that's true." "It is. He said watching you sell the house and move out and start over made him realize he could do the same thing. That he didn't have to stay in a marriage that made him miserable just because he was afraid of being alone. That it was okay to choose himself sometimes." I felt something warm spread through my chest. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction, or just love for my son, complicated and messy as it was. "Your dad's a good man," I said. "He made some mistakes, some pretty big ones, but he's trying to be better. That's all any of us can do." "Like you?" "Like all of us." After I took her home that evening, Jake walked me to my car. The night was cool and clear, stars visible despite the city lights. "Thanks for spending time with her," he said. "She needs you in her life. Hell, I need you in mine." "I need her too. Need both of you." He hesitated, then said, "I was thinking, summer's coming. Maybe we could all go somewhere together. You, me, Ellie. Take a trip. Make some new memories. Nothing fancy, just the three of us." I looked at him, at the hope in his eyes, at the man he was becoming, or maybe the man he'd always been underneath all the garbage. "I'd like that," I said. His face lit up like a kid on Christmas morning. "Really?" "Really. But nothing fancy. Somewhere simple. Maybe rent a cabin by a lake or something." "Deal. I'll start looking." As I drove away, I caught him in the rearview mirror, standing in the driveway, waving. I waved back, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like maybe we were going to be okay. In June, we took that trip. We rented a cabin by a lake 3 hours upstate. 3 days of fishing and hiking and sitting on the porch watching the sunset. No phones, no TV, no distractions. Just the three of us. Ellie caught the biggest fish, a bass that fought her for 10 minutes before she reeled it in. She was so proud, holding it up for photos, grinning from ear to ear. Jake and I taught her how to clean it, how to gut it and scale it and fillet it. Then we cooked it over an open fire, wrapped in foil with lemon and butter. "Best fish I've ever had," she said, licking her fingers. "That's because you caught it yourself," I told her. "Food always tastes better when you've worked for it." We told stories about Sarah, about the time she tried to bake a birthday cake for Jake and set off the smoke alarm, filling the house with smoke. About the way she sang off-key in the shower, old country songs that drove me crazy but I secretly loved. About her terrible sense of direction, how she could get lost going to the grocery store. About her amazing sense of humor, how she could make anyone laugh even in the darkest times. Ellie soaked it all up, hungry for pieces of the grandmother she barely remembered. "I wish I'd known her better," she said one night as we sat around the campfire, stars blazing overhead. "Me too," Jake said quietly. "I wish I'd appreciated her more when she was alive, listened to her advice, paid attention to what she was trying to teach me." She's still here, though, I said, poking the fire with a stick. In both of you. Ellie's got her smile, her kindness. Jake's got her strength, even if he forgets it sometimes. She's not gone. Not really. We sat in silence for a while, listening to the crickets and the gentle lap of water against the shore. The fire crackled. An owl hooted somewhere in the dark woods. I'm glad we did this, Jake said eventually. All of us together. It feels right. Me too, I said, and I meant it with my whole heart. On the drive home, Ellie fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from 3 days of fresh air and activity. Jake and I talked quietly, the radio playing softly between us, some old classic rock station. How are things with the apartment? I asked. Good. Really good. It's starting to feel like home. I've been thinking about buying a small house eventually, actually. Something I can fix up myself. Use everything you've taught me. That sounds nice. Would you help me when I find the right place? Of course. That's what fathers do. He glanced at me, then back at the road. His hands were steady on the wheel. I know I don't say this enough, but thank you, Dad, for giving me another chance, for not giving up on me when I deserved it, for teaching me what real strength looks like. It's not about never falling down. It's about getting back up. You're my son, I said simply. I'm not going to give up on you, not ever. Even when I deserve it. Especially then. Summer faded into fall, the way it always does. The leaves turned, the air grew crisp, the world prepared for winter. Jake found a house in September, a small fixer-upper on the edge of town, not far from my apartment. We spent weekends working on it together, and sometimes Ellie came too. I taught her to use a drill, to measure twice and cut once, to take pride in work done well. She was a natural, patient and careful and willing to learn. It reminded me of teaching Jake when he was young, back before everything got complicated. The three of us worked together, stripping wallpaper and painting walls and refinishing floors. It felt right. It felt like family. Charlotte stopped by my apartment one October afternoon with a bottle of wine and a box of cookies from the bakery we both liked. I wanted to check on you, she said, settling into my second-hand armchair. Make sure you're doing okay? It's been almost a year. Has it really? Since the wedding, since you sold the house, since everything changed. I poured us each a glass of wine. Red, because that's what Sarah had always preferred. I'm doing well, I said, sitting across from her. Better than I've been in years, honestly. I heard you and Jake are talking again, working on his new house together. We are. It's not perfect. We still have our moments, but we're figuring it out. She smiled, that warm smile that had always reminded me of Sarah. She would be happy about that. Sarah, I mean. She always said family was the most important thing. I think she would be. I hope so anyway. We sat on my small patio as the sun went down, watching the leaves fall from the trees, talking about old times and new beginnings. Do you regret it? She asked eventually. Selling the house? No, I said without hesitation. It was the right thing to do. For me, definitely. Maybe for Jake too, in a strange way. We both needed to let go of the past and figure out who we were without it. Without the house, without the expectations, without all the history weighing us down. That's very wise. I don't know about wise, but it's honest. And sometimes that's all you can be. She raised her glass. To new beginnings, to second chances. To new beginnings, I echoed, clinking my glass against hers. On Thanksgiving, Jake invited me to his new house for dinner. It was just the three of us, Jake, Ellie, and me. No Rebecca, no extended family, no drama, just us. We cooked together, the three of us crowded in his small kitchen, laughing when the turkey came out dry and the gravy turned lumpy and the mashed potatoes were too salty. This is terrible, Ellie said, laughing as she pushed food around her plate. This is perfect, I corrected, because we made it together. After dinner, we sat in Jake's new living room. The house still needed work, but it was starting to feel like a home. He'd hung a photo of Sarah over the fireplace, a picture from her 30s when she'd been in her prime. She smiled down at us, forever young, forever beautiful. I have something for you, Dad, Jake said, pulling an envelope from his pocket. I opened it carefully. Inside was a check, a large one, very large. What's this? Your share, from the house. I talked to a lawyer after the divorce was finalized. Technically, legally, I was entitled to part of that money from the sale. Mom had left the house to both of us in her will, even though only your name was on the deed. But I don't want it. It's yours. You earned it. You built that house. You maintained it. You filled it with love and memories. This is just money. It doesn't even begin to repay what you've given me. I looked at the check, then at him. My eyes were burning. Jake, I can't. Yes, you can. You have to. Please, let me do this one thing right. You've done lots of things right. Not enough, not nearly enough. You sacrificed everything for me, Dad. You raised me alone after Mom died. You worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. You gave up your dreams so I could chase mine. This is just money. It doesn't even begin to make us even. I felt tears prick my eyes. I blinked them back, but they came anyway. Thank you, I said, my voice rough and broken. Thank you, Dad. For not giving up on me. For showing me what real strength looks like. For teaching me that it's never too late to make things right, to be better, to choose the right path even when it's hard. Ellie came over and hugged me tight. Then Jake did, wrapping his arms around both of us. We stood there in his unfinished living room, the 3 of us holding on to each other like we were the only solid things in a spinning world. And I thought about the journey that had brought us here. The betrayal, the anger, the hurt, the slow, painful process of forgiveness and rebuilding. It hadn't been easy. There were still scars, still moments of doubt and old pain that resurfaced when I least expected it. But we'd made it through. We'd survived. We'd found our way back to each other. And that was enough. That was everything.